Welcome to the Wild Enthusiasm for Living podcast. I am your host, Dr. Melissa Mann. Join me for conversations about possibilities and tools for having more joy, more play, and way more of you. What would it be like to wake up every day with a wild enthusiasm for living? Hello and welcome to the Wild Enthusiasm for Living podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Melissa Mann, and today I have my new friend, Simone Knego, with me. And Simone is a keynote speaker, an author, and a podcast host, and she is also a two-time TEDx speaker. And she's also about to release a new book called Real Confidence from Unsure to Unshakable. And that comes out February 17th. So welcome, Simone, for being here with me today.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yay. So we were talking a little bit before we got started about what we wanted to talk about. And Simone does a lot of different things on confidence, if I get that right. And one of the things that she said to me was, hey, like I also do this thing called kitchen table leadership. And I was like, wait, I have to know about that. So I would love to dive in there and then see where we go. So Simone, can you just tell us a little bit, what is kitchen table leadership? What does that mean?
So, when I think of leadership, let me ask the audience, when you think of leadership, what do you think of? Do you think of the boardroom? Do you think of the title? And the answer is probably yes. That's typically what people think of. We've been sold this very narrow view of what leadership is, and I believe it's something completely different. Yes, the boardroom is great and the titles are great, but it's the idea of what we do without the title, right? What we do behind the scenes. So many of our decisions happen around the kitchen table, and how we lead as a human being, how we parent, what we do when nobody else is watching. That is leadership, but nobody's ever called it that. So we don't ever think about it like that. And part of it for me is the idea of modeling, that I truly believe that modeling matters more than managing, because we can say, I remember when I was younger, my parents would say, do as I say, not as I do. I'm like, okay, well, what does that teach me? Right? Like, don't follow through on things because I'm not doing it. So to me, it's a different type of leadership, because it's not about the job you have. It's about the person you are.
Wow, that's so beautiful, and I think it's so relevant in so many different areas of life. I love that you said that. It can be from a boardroom standpoint, from a career standpoint of being a manager, leading other people, but also how do you lead in your life? How do you lead your children? How do you lead in any space in your life? And I'm wondering how you got to this. How has this shown up in your own life where you were like, wow, that's so important.
Yeah, for me, a big part of it was that I didn't see myself as a leader. I have 6 children, so you would think that in itself would be thought of it as leadership, but I just didn't see it that way. I The way I would talk about myself, the way I would talk to myself was, with very limiting beliefs, right? You're just a stay-at-home mom, you're just Rob's wife, you're just a volunteer, whatever I was in that time period, but I realized that it's so important the way we talk to ourselves, right? The words that we use, and really understanding that we are all leaders, and the things that we do every day are what really matter. How you interact with someone on an airplane, right? When you're standing in line and someone needs help, do you just ignore it or do you help them, right? That's all leadership. And to me, it was so important to kind of bring this forward for my kids as well, for them to understand that the choices you make every single day matter.
Yeah, it's not just when you're in front of a group or when you're in a quote unquote leadership role. It's throughout the day. And I was on a plane last night. I got in late. So, but it was interesting even watching that. The flight was delayed. People, it was a tight plane. So just watching how different people interacted with each other and in a sort of stressful, uncomfortable situation. And you notice when people kind of are at peace with themselves and are like, well, that's annoying anyways, and are still kind,
Mhm.
versus the people that come in and are like, do you know when we're leaving? And what are we going to like, how are you going to get me to my destination? And, are in more of an ego-centered space and not concerned with how that affects the person that they're now yelling at, who has no control over when the flight takes off. But how that shows up in all areas of our life. So I love that that's something that you looked at from maybe the space of feeling not good enough at one point. How did you change it? How did you go from the I'm only a stay-at-home mom, or I'm just a wife, or like how did you get out of that?
So for me, it was really important. What I realized over time is the words we use, right? That is huge on an everyday basis. And I would tell you 10 plus years ago, I would never have used positive affirmations. I would say that stuff doesn't work. And then I did research and started realizing that I really need something to bring me forward. I had a aha moment with my daughter who's now 22. I was getting ready for an event and wasn't happy with what I saw in the mirror. And so I was saying horrible things to myself. And she walked in and she said, "First of all, mom, you're beautiful. Second of all, you're giving me a complex. How do you expect me to love my body when you don't even like your own?" And that was kind of a big jump for me to say, wow, I didn't realize how the way I was treating myself was affecting the people around me as well. I think often we don't realize that. But everything we say, I mean, our kids are sponges. And, when we're at work, when we can't take a compliment or we really struggle to use our voice, all of those things, people notice. And it's so important that we are proud of exactly who we are. So I do positive affirmations all the time. I have little mindset hacks. Created what I call Control Alt Delete. Not that I created that because that existed, but but back in the day, it was how you would reset a frozen computer, and I like to use it to reset my mind. So control is about awareness, and I think that's the biggest part with everything we do. We need to be aware of our space, what we're saying, what we're doing, and taking that awareness and saying, okay, are the things I'm saying to myself, are they true? Are they helpful? And most of the time they're not, right? Most of the time when we're saying things to ourselves, where we have that negative on repeat, and alt is alternative. Tell yourself a better story, right? Instead of I can't, I can. What if I fail? When I succeed. And it's a constant practice. And the last part is delete. Delete the habits and beliefs that don't serve you. Delete the comparison game. Delete the belief that you're not enough, right? And I think when we do this on a regular basis, it's a practice that we're able to change the way we see ourselves. Instead of changing who we are, we need to change the way we see ourselves.
That's incredible. I love the Control Alt Delete. I'm going to use that and teach it to people.
Good.
I'll give you
Yeah.
credit.
Good. Yeah.
That's really really cool, because it's like it's a quick like kind of, like, oh, like what am I doing? I don't want to actually continue to talk to myself this way. So how can I change it and delete this point of view? And I wonder, as you've worked with different people around this, sometimes people are like, yeah, I get it, but like, how do I get rid of that thought? Or how do I like actually change it so that it doesn't keep coming back over and over again? Do you have any advice on how you were able to really like hone in and change that mindset and ultimately delete that from your thinking patterns?
So it really is about the practice. So any habit takes, depends on the statistics you look at, but 60 to 90 days to actually take effect. I've had people say to me, "Oh, I tried positive affirmations. They didn't work for me." Okay, well, how much did you use them? Well, I tried them once. Okay, well, let's go to the gym one time and have a completely fit body, or take one Spanish lesson and know the language. I think we put these unrealistic expectations on ourselves thinking, oh, this is going to change overnight, but it's not. It's got to be really a practice, just like yoga, just like meditation. It's something that you need to do every day. And that for me was really what changed things. And really taking that step back and asking myself, are the things that I'm thinking real? Because most of the time they're not. And we like to tell ourselves these negative stories. I call it the what if whisperer, right? What if we fail? What if they judge us? What if we're not enough? And okay, so, right? Like those things aren't true. It's like step forward and try and see what you're capable of, because a lot of times the words we use keep us stuck in a certain place, and it's not a place that we want to be.
Absolutely. And I wholeheartedly agree with you. I think that there is so much power in words, and the way that we speak about ourselves, about anything actually, sort of creates, we sort of speak it into existence. So the more we say these negative things, and we do start to feel worse and worse about ourselves. And it sounds like, as you've played in the world of affirmations, the more you've really made that part of your daily practice, that's what creates the change. And you're right. I think a lot of people do say that, oh, I tried it and it doesn't work. But I too have found, when you use them on a regular basis, it does start to change things. Is there a place that you go to find, like, I need a positive affirmation for this, or, I need new affirmations that I start using? Do you have like a go-to, or do you create them on your own? How do you come up with?
I create them on my own based on what I'm going through. So if I'm, applying for something completely out of my realm, I'll create something based on that. Like I have basic ones that I use. Like I say I am. A lot of times people like to use third person, so it kind of takes it away from their space, right? Like you are beautiful, you are kind, you are smart, you are patient. I still use I because I want to take ownership of it, but either way, it kind of depends on what you're looking for. Now, I don't really have like a bank of them. I do have sheets that I've created for people because a lot of times that's the hard thing. Like, where do I start? This feels really awkward. And I get it, but you have to do it. Like it's like any other practice. You have to start. I can tell you the first time I ever did yoga, I couldn't bend anything. And I'm in a group full of people. Like the nice thing about affirmations is you can do them in the car, you can do them in front of the mirror in the morning. Nobody else has to be there. My kids walk in a lot of times and they're like, "Oh my gosh, she's doing her mirror moments again." Like, yes, I am. But the great thing is I see them doing them now too, right? When they're struggling with something, I see them saying, okay, I am capable of this, I've got this. And again, one of the things that I really think makes such a big difference in how we move forward in our lives.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing, because seeing that your kids kind of are like, "Oh, geez, look at mom," and then they start doing them, and you're like, "Wow, that's the leadership that you're talking about." Is you're modeling for your children how to show up in the world, how to work through your own stuff, and they see you doing that, and then they move forward in their life, and they do that, and they teach it to their children, and the world gets greater. So, I mean, that's really beautiful, and an incredible practice that starts with just making a commitment to you to be like, I'm changing this. I want this to be different. And I'm wondering, since you have started, or have been doing this, I guess, for a long time, like, what changes have you noticed in your life since committing to the Control Alt Delete and doing affirmations and changing your belief system?
I've tried things that I never thought I could do. I would say that's one big thing. I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro, I hiked the Inca Trail. I've done things that were completely out of my comfort zone before because I didn't think I could, right? I told myself, "Oh, I can't do that. I can't do that." Well, the question is, do you want to? Because I think so often we instantly say we can't do something. If we don't want to do it, that's a whole different story. Like, I don't want that. But also, what I see is that I'm not stuck in the comparison game. Instead of really worrying about what anybody else is doing, if I see something great happening, I'm like, "Congratulations, that's amazing." Instead of wishing, "Oh, I wish that was me. Like I should be doing that." And that really has gone away from me because I'm grateful for where I am and where I'm moving forward to.
That's amazing, everything you just said. So, I mean, you've hiked some of these major trails and paths and mountains and all of these things. When you were in that process, were you using affirmations through the trail, through the hiking and the cold and the all of it?
Yeah, that's really when I started doing it. I was really at a hard space then where I really didn't believe in myself. When I did Kilimanjaro, it was really a breakthrough for me. I'm not saying go out and climb a mountain, but I really think it is true to be able to do the things you think you can't. So for me, Kilimanjaro was never a bucket list item. I was asked to do it. I said yes. Then I researched and said, "Oh my gosh, what am I doing?" But definitely the whole time on that trail, I had that voice in my head that said, "What are you doing here? You have 6 kids at home. You're not an athlete. You've never hiked anything before." And it was really, for me, it was about taking action, that one step forward to really quiet that voice, and then figuring out my mindset hacks that worked for me. And that one was the control alt delete one, where it was really, you have control, right? You can't control what's actually going to come into your brain at any moment, but you can control what you're going to do with it. And definitely through Kilimanjaro, that was true. Also, when we did the Inca Trail, my dad had passed away just the month before. And I want to say several people were like, "I can't believe you're going to go hike a mountain right after your dad died." And I was like, people grieve in different ways. And it really gave me the opportunity to kind of really focus on what I needed in the moment. And I like to say that self care is never selfish, but it was for me that kind of not listening to what anybody else had to say and just really following my own voice was really making such a big change for me moving forward.
That makes a lot of sense to me. When I hear people saying, "Why would you do this after your dad died?" I was like, "That's why you would do it." To have that space to grieve and um to do something for you. Yeah, that self-care piece is so huge. And in those hikes and summits, I mean, was there ever a time that you wanted to give up?
Oh, yeah. I mean, again, you hear that voice inside your head enough times, you start to believe it, right? So you're like, "Oh, I'm not capable of this. I can't take one more step." Yes, you can. Yes, you can. So, um, obviously, the goal was to make to the summit, but actually, the biggest achievement for me was actually signing up, taking that first step, and then the second step after that, because that's usually what gets us caught up. Once we're already registered for something, typically, okay, we're going to go do it. But it's believing in ourselves enough to actually take that first step to move forward, I think is one of the hardest pieces. But yeah, I mean, trust me, self doubt doesn't just go away. You just learn how to deal with it and say, that isn't true, right? That isn't true. I am capable of anything I put my mind to if I want to do it.
Yeah, I love that you were like, "No, this is hard and I'm gonna keep going." And I love what you said about the signing up, because that is where I think most people get stuck in most things is, the commitment to doing it at all. Because if that you have the mindset of I can't, then you're not gonna sign up at all. You're never gonna take that step. And that all comes back to that leadership piece of like, who do I want to show up in the world as, not only for myself, but as an example to anybody who, might be inspired, watching, learning from my experiences, what I'm choosing. So it sounds like that all came together in those moments for you and was actually the beginning of so much more.
Absolutely. And, I love the title of your podcast, because I think that that's what we all need, right? Wild enthusiasm for living. And we don't always have that. And part of it is the limiting beliefs that we put forward because we don't think we're capable of things, but we have to try, right? If we don't
Yeah,
try, we'll never know.
absolutely. And the other thing that you said that has struck me is getting out of the comparison game.
Mm,
And that is something that I find as a psychologist that people struggle so much with. It's like they're like, if I lived like in a like world by myself, I'm fine. But it's as soon as I start seeing what, Sally next door is doing and the neighbor down the street and all the, once I start looking at everybody else on Instagram and all the places, now I feel inadequate. So what how did you get out of that, and what advice do you have for, I mean, people, but especially women who are like constantly comparing their bodies, comparing their careers, comparing their success? Like what would be like a great way to start to move away from that of comparing yourself all the time?
yeah, it was definitely something that I did for a very long time. And so I call it the real method. And it really is about building confidence. But it's respect yourself, embrace your failures, ask yourself what you want, and live without limits. So, really, the first thing is respect yourself, right? I mean, I started there because I think it's one of the most important things. When I think back to my childhood, I was taught to respect my elders, my peers, right? teachers, grandparents, all of the above. Never once do I ever remember being taught that the most important person I need to respect is myself. And I think when we start respecting ourselves, I think we're not worried about what anybody else is doing. We're trying to be our best selves. And, going through the rest of the method, like that's all in there, right? We're so worried about failing that we're not willing to try, but it's really about what did you learn from it? Um, and why do we care what anybody else is doing? I mean, I think that that's always my big question. Like, what does it matter what anybody else is doing? What are you doing? Because if you're spending all this time worrying about everybody else, you're not doing anything for yourself. So instead of taking that time worrying about anybody else, it's really like, okay, what can I do for myself right there? Imagine the extra self-care time you would have if you stopped scrolling on social media, worrying about what everybody else is doing, you know?
Yeah, that's real.
Yeah.
Of really coming into like, I love that. What am I doing? What can I create? What is actually fun for me? What lights me up is such a different energy than what's she doing and how can I do it better?
Yeah.
Or I'm not good enough and just saying I could never be like that. I could never be like her. And then people keep themselves in a box and won't even allow themselves to do the things that would be fun because maybe they wouldn't be the best at it or they are afraid of failing. And then people thinking something about them for not getting it perfect.
Yeah.
And yeah. And the other thing that you said is, something around like being willing to like not be perfect. Like, is there something in that? Like I don't know, I'm like, how do we get to people's heads? It's like, they don't
What
have to
is
get it right.
perfect? Yeah, what is perfect? There's no such thing as perfection, right? It's really we're all just doing the best we can, and I wanna get rid of just because I like to say drop the just, but we're all doing the best we can, and when we look at other people and say, "Oh my gosh, their life is so perfect." I had moments like that for a very long time. I was actually sitting at this women's event, and I had put up such a big facade for so long about having to be super strong because that's what I thought everybody expected of me, that I didn't cry for a really long time about anything. Like I just didn't cry. And we were at this event, and one of the women who I thought had the perfect life actually started sharing what she struggled with. And all of a sudden I was like, oh my gosh. And I started crying. Like I always thought the walls would crack if I started crying. And it was that moment of realization that I wasn't alone. So here I thought that everybody around me does everything perfectly and they have nothing bad happens to them. So not true. Everybody struggles. And it's a reminder to ourselves that, again, let's worry about what we're doing. I remember seeing uh, a nanny with a couple of kids at a playground one time, and the one kid was like trying to copy everything the other kid was doing, and she's like, Johnny is taken. You have to be Tommy. And I thought that was so cute because it's so true. Like we want what everybody else has, but why? Like why don't we want just what we want and not worry about what anybody else is doing?
Yeah, I love that. It's such a simple thing to say to a child, but it's so genius because we do that. We were like, all right, I want to be like this person, or I want to, like, I don't know. And what do you suppose is the difference between having the people lead you, like having people to look up to, having people that, you want to like, oh, I'd like to be like her someday, versus like comparing yourself? Like, how do
Yeah.
you stay in between those two?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's great to have people that you look to as mentors or people that you look to say, you know what, one day I'm going to do that as well, instead of like being jealous of the person who is doing something that you wish you could do. And again, it's all about mindset, right? To get to where you want to be, you have to put in the work. It's not just saying, oh, I'm so jealous of this person. Let me just be like them. I wish my life were perfect. And it doesn't work that way, right? You set the goal, you put in the work, and you believe in yourself. And it sounds simple. And I know it's not. I know you have to really work at it on a regular basis. But again, if you take the time away from worrying about what anybody else is doing, then you really do have the time to pour into yourself so that you can help other people and you can make a difference.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I mean, I know you speak about these things and you write about them, and I mean, this has become a part of your mission, from what I can see.
Mhm.
Um, what made you want to share this information? What made you, like, I don't know, have that drive to speak about this and write about it?
So I think because I struggled so much when I was younger, when I was in high school, I had an abusive boyfriend. And I realized not until my 40s, that's why I really struggled till that point in time, because I never talked about it. I never let it go. And I'm not saying that everybody should go talk about what they struggle with. It's very personal. You have to decide. But for me, talking about what I struggled with not only helped me, but it helped the people around me. And what I wanted my kids to see, and not just my girls, my boys too, that when there's something happening, it's okay to ask for help. We're human. It's important to ask for help. But for so long, for me, I just pushed it aside because I didn't want to look weak. I felt shame. You know, all of the emotions, but that's not how life works. And so I truly learned that when you just stuff something down, you can't move forward. And so by sharing the things that I struggle with, the sharing the things that I want my kids to feel comfortable enough to say, here's what's going on. Can you help me? And if I'm not sharing, guess what? They're not sharing either.
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. I love that you took your own personal experiences and turned that into something to be a teaching moment, to be a leader, to show people that it's okay to talk about the things. Just like the lady in the conference you were talking about that, um, was, you thought her life was perfect and then she was open and sharing, and you were able to see that everybody has their stuff, but like you opened the door to share about your life, to talk about things that it creates a sense of safety for other people to also have that ability, and they're not having to shove everything down or put on a fake face and pretend everything's okay. Meanwhile, it's festering. So, I mean, what a beautiful example of wanting to be a leader in, across the board in the world, to give people another possibility for what can be created. I think that's really amazing.
Thanks. Yeah. One of the things that's really surprised me as I've moved forward is that if I tell the boyfriend story on stage, every time I've done that, I've had multiple women come up to me and say, "Oh, I had a boyfriend like that," or "My daughter's going through something like that." But they probably would have never said it if I wouldn't have shared what I struggled with. So I think that being real with people really makes a difference.
Yeah. It's such an invitation to, I think we live in a world where there's so much false everything. Everything's curated, everything's filtered. To be real is such a different way to be, and a courageous choice that I would love to see more people choosing that, and not this like fake, look at me, I'm being authentic, but like
Mm.
real raw. You know what I mean? There's a difference.
Yeah, I think a lot of times people will actually say, "Oh, I'm being so authentic." And you're like, "Okay, if you're saying that you're being authentic, you're not being authentic."
Right, you've killed it.
Yeah, just be you. Again, like the kids in the playground, everyone else is taken.
I love that. Thank you so much. Is there anything before we finish up, any words of wisdom before we close today?
I'll leave you with one piece, which is you don't need to change who you are. You need to change the way you see yourself.
I absolutely love that. Thank you so much for being on, Simone. It was such a pleasure. And where can people find you if they'd like to find more of you?
Yeah, thank you. So my website, SimoneKnego.com, SimoneKnego. And then my new book, the website for that is realconfidencebook.com. And then I'm on all the social media that you can find under Simone Knego.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. And I appreciate you being on. I look forward to talking to everybody sometime soon.
Thank you.
Bye bye.